Hey there, welcome to episode 87 of the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at, we'll call it 12:20 p.m. on Friday, October 25, 2024. The end of the year is upon us. The end of the summer has apparently arrived here in Vegas, which is very exciting. It is, I'm going to say it's around 75 degrees outside, 76 Fahrenheit, 25 Celsius. I've been saying the weather at the beginning of my different various audio programs this past couple of weeks because it's been a little bit off. It's a little bit warm on the warm side. So I'm just letting people know for posterity. Remember when it was only 75 degrees on October 25th in Las Vegas? That said, today's episode, the title, don't take it the wrong way, Detritus. Some people would treat that as like I'm saying it's garbage or... No. Detritus is also just stuff to sweep up and throw into the trash. No, I just want to gather up a few things. I do talk, I think, too much about some of the challenges of the Greater Vegas Entrepreneurial Innovation Ecosystem from the context of what is lacking. And I really do want to switch over towards what is possible, or a little bit more optimistic view. Once again, bring a guest in now and then to talk about what they're working on, what they're doing. Doesn't have to be tech. There are a couple of possibilities just in this very, in the links section for this episode, for people to potentially reach out to. So that hopefully will happen. So we'll treat Detritus as as we're sweeping up some of the crumbs on our prep table so we can start making some cool stuff. On that note, I will remind any newcomers, the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program is focused on our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem in the Southern Nevada area, the Greater Vegas area. Greater as in geographically, beyond the administrative boundaries of the city of Las Vegas. Some people want to turn Clark County into Vegas County. I can see where that would be interesting. But as well, a Vegas greater than it is now. The better Vegas that I have been chanting about whenever I hear, we're going to be the next Silicon Valley or Hollywood 2.0 or fill in the blank. Cafe Genius itself is a combination of an ode of sorts to the Cafe Centro, which I think is still closed. Very, very unfortunately, very sad. Cafe Centro is a quaint coffee shop. I mean quaint in a good way, not too much. It was a very simple little shop in South Park, very near was it still the AT&T Stadium? Very, very interesting place where startups start, I think was their tagline. It's where Twitter got its start. Jack Dorsey playing with his laptop, sitting outside Cafe Centro. Cafe Centro is spelled with two Fs, just like Cafe Genius. And during the downtown project days, about 10 years ago, every once in a while there'd be a little get-together, mostly friend of a friend network, as in, hey, do you want to come to the lunch? And then you tell the organizer. It was a very loose organization. You didn't really have to tell them, but if we were going to try to reserve a table or something, so we started calling it the Genius Lunch. And it was literally who's working on what, how are things, what's on the horizon, what's coming up. It actually was sort of valuable. It's something that really should make a comeback. But the Cafe Genius thing is a few things. It sort of mixes these two ideas together. And we focus on our ecosystem. So there you go. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you have also found the episode description, which contains not only a summary, which I will read to you, but as well the links for today's episode. There are several. Today's links are really, they're top level links, so they're more website links than articles. I think I have one article. The point of this collection of links is to give some idea, not comprehensive, not complete even, but just some idea of where things are. And again, this is Detritus, so I don't really want to spend time into the future speaking about these things too much. We should be looking at what we can do about it. I so often say if you're an entrepreneur and you are talking about problems, you are not talking about solutions. And that's what entrepreneurialism is. Supposedly, an entrepreneur is someone with an idea and no money. And that is certainly me. Maybe it's you. So let's get started. Summary of today's episode. I will read it. You can read it, but I will read it right now for you. Not specifically trash, but a few items that are in the bin that I don't really want to talk about so much for a while because, frankly, they're getting old and tired. And our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem needs not only new energy, but new optimism. And these don't come from meetups. They come from the people that go to meetups or that do their thing or what I'm inserting some extra editorial there. They also don't get much media coverage, these new energy and new optimism notions. They don't really appear in our local media. And you've heard me talk about this before. We're just going to kind of run over a few of the crumbs as what is it, a crumb scraper? When you've had bread at your table and somebody comes by and scrapes up the crumbs, they take them away. So you can move on to the next course. So there you go. Today's links for today's episode, the first two, the shameless self-promotion for your host, that's me. Why do I put the word host in front of those? Because in a perfect world, if I had guests, the guests might actually have their own version of a Buy Me a Coffee or a Ko-fi or a website or whatever. So I plan to continue to call those out separately. That said, my usual self-promotion, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, DanHugo, and Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. And yes, I know it's probably coffee.com, but from a visual perspective, and because it is spelled oddly, ko-fi.com/DanHugo, you are not obligated to spend any money at either of these sites. Open source projects and other creative people like myself can use these sorts of tools to get the word out. I don't have to manage the software. I don't have to deal with the website or update or fix bugs, and there are bugs. So I can use them in the bigger picture where they are familiar. People know what they are. You can contribute financially to the various projects. I use the buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page as a sort of a link. Not a link tree, but just a link page, a page of links. And you can be more creative than using the various link tree platforms that are floating around there. The link in bio notion, thanks to the likes of Instagram breaking the internet. The internet should be a place where you can put links where you want and have them point to where you need them to point. All that said, links to my various audio programs and hopefully some stuff will be added soon. I say that all the time, but it's actually becoming closer. We're getting closer to that becoming a reality. I've been thinking today about how I will shift to using Ko-fi more. So probably make a kind of like a Monday morning, here's what you missed last week sort of thing, and use it as a sort of a rolling announcement, kind of like a faux RSS feed. Anyway, so check those out if you will. I really have been using them in a passive way, but I'm not trying to raise money for you, so it's from you, so it's all good. Now some local media links. These are top level pages, and I'm throwing these on here as a source of contemplation when it comes to talking about our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. So the first two are actually statutory news outlets. They are mentioned in the Nevada Revised Statutes, the NRS. I do not remember which ones. Maybe I'll bring those up in the future when we talk more specifically about local media, since, disclaimer, one of my entrepreneurial ventures at present is a news or information sharing platform for a city. It's heavily based on efforts in the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I am the managing director. So a lot of open source, a lot of community elevation ideas, and so on. I have worked in the media industry before. I have done a lot of things, actually. So first, the Las Vegas Sun, LasVegasSun.com, spelled out, no punctuation, Las Vegas Sun, and then a dot, and then com. The Las Vegas Sun, it appears to be left-leaning. I believe they have officially endorsed the Harris Walls campaign, and they actually they're not easy to find, but you can search for them. I didn't see them prominently mentioned, but as usual in the Southern Nevada area, a lot of focus is on crime and gambling and gaming and gaming, not gambling, gaming. It's all gaming. The fun economy, the crime that goes on, different types of things, local politics, mostly as it relates to business or regulation, local break-ins. There used to be a focus on the theft of catalytic converters, for example. So our local media does focus on that. So the Las Vegas Sun, however, did have more locatable links about some of the stuff that we'll talk about today in the way of entrepreneurialism. They did actually mention Startup Week, and I didn't see a mention for Global Entrepreneur Week, but hey, that's in a month, less than a month. So we'll see. But the Las Vegas Sun and then the Review Journal, reviewjournal.com, they are most definitely right-leaning. They've endorsed Donald Trump for president, Trump Vance. And I have found that their coverage leans much more heavily towards big business and the traditional Southern Nevada business sectors, real estate, crime, politics, casinos and gambling and gaming, and what buildings are being torn down, which ones are being built, Formula One. If you have money, the Review Journal will talk about, a rich person moving from, why are the rich people from California moving to Vegas? Previously, the Review Journal will publish a headline like, 10,000 small businesses have moved to Vegas. And then you read a third or fourth paragraph down over the last 10 years. Okay. Not totally topical. Interesting, but that headline makes it sound, anyway, that's the nature of the biz. So the Review Journal, much more right-leaning, much less interesting as far as small business coverage. I don't really see it. The Review Journal is not generally supportive from what I've seen thus far when it comes to being a small business, tech or otherwise. If you're launching a restaurant or something, call the Las Vegas Sun, although really call Eater. I don't know who Eater might be affiliated with the Review Journal. I don't know. Let's actually look since we're here. I think it's Las Vegas Eater. Eater, not Easter. Eater.com, VegasEater.com. I'm not going to put that link in there. That's a little audible bonus for you. Eater.com is, if we go down to the footer, affiliated. Oh, it's a Vox Media site. So their affiliations are not necessarily local. If you're going to launch a restaurant, though, as a small business, go there. Go to Eater. Don't go to Review Journal. So that's what I'll say about that. Anyway, those are the two, again, statutory papers of record, news outlets of record. You can look at the TV news if you want, the Channel 8 and Channel whatever. They have their own problems. So we're looking at the print media stuff. They have actual reporters. They will actually talk to you on the phone. Not totally impressive on the Review Journal side, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Las Vegas Business Press is an RJ Review Journal affiliate, businesspress.vegas. I flipped through there, about the same problem as a Review Journal. So skewed coverage of, big versus small business and so on. Nevada Current, NevadaCurrent.com, the Nevada Independent, the NevadaIndependent.com. So both of those are spelled out, no punctuation other than the .com. Those are leaning into the independent news outlet space. They tend to cover stories that are a more broad interest. So they don't seem to really focus on startups per se. That really should change. That could change. I think they're not new, but they're both, they gotta do what they gotta do to stay in business. So I'm giving them a slight pass. But I would really like to see more coverage of small business and more coverage of life on the ground, so to speak, from the bottom up. So if the Governor's Office of Economic Development is leaning heavily into entrepreneurialism across all of Nevada, so I think that deserves more news coverage in general. It shouldn't be a thing that you kind of hear about sometimes in a random 2-minute spot on a TV or a YouTube video or TV news, traditional TV news outlet. So they are not human interest stories. They are the fundamental thing that everybody thinks is the future. we should cover it as such. NevadaBusiness.com, NevadaBusiness.com. No punctuation there as well. Yeah. Vegas Business Digest, also spelled out, VegasBusinessDigest.com. I think, was that the one that, let me take another look here. None of these are great. Let's be honest. I wish they were. Nevada Business, much more about the election, of course. Vegas Business Digest, a lot of real estate. Coverage of that. If you look at the homepage, obviously the cover will change, hopefully every day. Energy efficient homes, Nevada unemployment rate. So kind of traditional business. City of Las Vegas seeks community input for designing the future of the historic West Side. The historic West Side does include the Ernst and Betty Becker Family Technology Center. If I probably got that wrong, but they do have a maker space out there, so that's something. Not sure if they really talk about that. It was opened a year and a half ago. Anyway, so you're kind of normal coverage. I don't really see them leaning into small business too much, so it's the traditional real estate, big business, unemployment, all the usual good news. So those are top-level news sites. There are more, not comprehensive, but if you flip through those, if you just kind of skim over front pages, home pages, you'll get a sense of what they really lean into. Even if you go to business sections, I will say that I did not see any featured mentions or any sort of high-profile, above-the-fold mentions or coverage of the Startup Week, for example, that just wrapped up 2 weeks ago, last Saturday, sometime. I don't know, because nobody talked about it. The coverage of something like that, you would think would just get a link maybe on the homepage, like, hey, by the way, just in case you were wondering, there is this big event going on. And anecdotally, I will say that either the week before or arguably the same week, depending on where you were looking, there was San Francisco or SF Tech Week, there was LA Tech Week, there was some other Tech Week in Bay Area. So there were multiple events going on in California, but also elsewhere. So Tech Week was a thing, not Startup Week exactly. But a colleague of mine from a former we worked together formerly in Silicon Valley. She was having an event. She posted on the awful site known as LinkedIn. What do you do when you have 1,200 people showing up for your 300-person venue for an evening mixer presentation event? So 1,200 people at one event. So it is important to realize where we are. It's not a competition on numbers. It's a measurement of where we are in the evolution or the cultivation or the transformation. And pick a word that you like for what this area, the Greater Vegas area, is, and what it could be, and what it should be, and so on. So something to think about. When no one's talking about it, it's not important, right? The LV Sports Biz. Now, I didn't link to the top there. You can guess what it is. It's lvsportsbiz.com, but I linked to an editorial from October 22nd, so that's 3 days ago. The F1, the upcoming Formula One race for the second year that runs through the Strip and various parts of areas near the Strip, has hurt too many in the Strip corridor. Small businesses, tourism, tourists. Where are those Bellagio trees in the Strip corridor? So move the F1 race from the Strip to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway site. I have a feeling this would break the fundamental concept that they're going for, so I don't see that happening. But the points are well taken. This being the second year, the allegations have been made that they will apply what they have learned and try not to do so much harm. The last time I checked, there were three separate lawsuits filed against LVCVA, that's the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, Clark County, the Clark County Commission, however they're involving them from the lawsuit standpoint. So they're certainly responsible, but I don't know if they're suing individuals or the commission itself. I'm not a lawyer. And then the Formula One organization, and who knows who else. I think those are the big three, though. I've talked about this previously, and you You can hunt down those the lawsuits. They may get attention if they're settled or whatever happens. They won't get attention otherwise. But this editorial I found interesting. LV Sports Biz has actually done some interesting coverage in general about the A's stadium, the Las Vegas Athletics Stadium. I've made my comments before about the Oakland A's when I worked at UMax, the UMax Coliseum, and how that deal fell through because of the A's and the Joint Powers Group. Long story. Anyway, so LV Sports Biz might be interesting given the place in the fun economy where professional sports have been elevated to. Professional sports was not so much a thing in recent years, but it is now not only a substantial pillar of the fun economy, but it might be a greater pillar. As long as you're rich and you can make money on this, you probably will. Startup Week Las Vegas, which is done. It was done on last Saturday. So what was that? Let me cheat and look at the calendar here. The 19th. The 19th. It was finished on the 19th. So I think it was Tuesday through Saturday. It ended at Tech Alley, as most good ideas do. Startup Week was a myriad of speakers spread across, I want to say, about 3 locations, which is always a good idea. Why have locality in your favor? Startup Week was sponsored by Techstars and Startup NV and a very small group of other sponsors. So not a huge event. I did not attend. I don't find value in these types of events. Some people did, according to rumor, the typical gathering, again, these were split across multiple locations, not necessarily walking distance from each other. I asked for an estimate. I was told maybe 50 people. So if you consider that as a number at each location at any given time, maybe 150 people participating or so. That's about the size of a Tech Alley crowd. The last time I was at a Tech Alley event, it was about 120. I typically say that the startup scene has about 300 people who actively show up for things. That is not to be confused with people working on startups. In fact, if you have the spare time to show up at events all the time, you may not be an entrepreneur working on a startup. So that's done. And I am talking about Startup Week Las Vegas right now more than most people did otherwise in the general population. That's a problem. The Nevada Global Entrepreneur Week for 2024 is coming up. I want to say it's what is it? It's the 18th to the 20th, 24th. No, let me find that website again. I have so many tabs open; it's ridiculous, and it's not even that many. I think it's 110, 111. The Global Entrepreneur Week. Can I multitask? No. The Global Entrepreneur Week in Nevada is taking place from the 18th to the 24th of November. The Global Entrepreneur Week, I think this is the 3rd week. The person running it, Dave Berlin, was running the Vegas version, so Southern Nevada. Then he matriculated to the state oversight of the event, so it's Nevada Global Entrepreneurship Week. I don't know. I hope it goes well. I'm not here to poo-poo events like this, but I am curious to see if these are effective and if they are valuable for the people who organize them and who run them and who attend and all that and participate and make presentations and participate in the scheduling and add to the calendar. I don't see a high utility calendar tool. I found the calendar agenda tools that were used on the Las Vegas Startup Week site were okay. The Global Entrepreneur Week site, well, we'll see what happens. So far the calendar isn't very full, but it is slightly less than a month away, so surely over the next 3 weeks it will fill up. So GEW Nevada, man, my voice was doing okay there for a second. Let me give it a quick pause. Okay, we're back. Let's see if this does any better. So startupweeklasvegas.com, bookmark that for next year, if they do it. And GEW, Global Entrepreneurship Week. So GEWNevada.com, no punctuation. GEWnevada.com. That's my plug. Once again, I will probably be the one talking about Global Entrepreneur Week more than anyone else in the general population. Obviously, the people directly involved and the people participating will talk about it. That's good. But we are a famously siloed geography. I was going to say community, but that's silly. There's more than one. There's multiple communities and they don't interact. Yeah. So silos, try to break out of your silo and figure out what's going on in the greater Vegas area. Global Entrepreneur Week, Entrepreneurship Week. Check it out. And finally, one of the partners, they do, if you go to the GEW website, you can scroll down and you'll see the list of partners. Let me give a little shout out real quick. So there are links here. The contributing partners, Choices. What is this? Choice Sound. Oh, it's mobile DJs. Okay. Choice Sound. I'm going to guess who that is. Choice Sound. Sorry. Getting distracted. So Choice Sound DJs, Hunter Marketing, awful purveyors of network.vegas, tech.vegas. These are horrible attempts at community calendar sites. They don't work. And Hunter Marketing does an awful job of interacting with people, but that's what we have. Sorry to editorialize, but I don't really want to plug them, but here we are. Pursue Vegas is an interesting idea. So I will generally be supportive of efforts like Pursue Vegas that are trying to do something unusual. Pursue Vegas. Not a lot going on their website, but I think they do more social media stuff. They're trying to just emphasize the stuff going on in Vegas, which doesn't get the attention. We've talked about that just today and in previous episodes. Jason LeDuc Leadership Consulting. Now, the person running, organizing top-level statewide oversight of GEW for Nevada is a retired Marine, Dave Berlin. So very active in the veteran community. Jason LeDuc, retired U.S. Air Force, also very active in the veteran community. So Jason will often support veteran-run activities and non-veteran-run activities. So LeDuc Leadership, a great example of a one-person company, which makes up 82% of the small business terrain in Southern Nevada. Alter New Media. I've never been to this website either. Alter New Media. Let's shake up the world together. It's a marketing. Okay. Marketing. And let's get back here. The GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development. So good for them. Not totally in sync with reality, but hey, that's government for you. Oscuro Creations, about, what is it? Launch your video and photography campaign. So they do content creation for media. Oh, so that's a serial cruise adventure. Okay, no comment. So those are the contributing partners. The community partners include Startup Vegas, which is a travesty. Southern Nevada Veterans Chamber of Commerce, which is good. The veteran population of Southern Nevada is something north of 160,000 people. It's one of the higher densities, I suppose, of veteran population per population. So, good. Tech Alley, okay. Bunker Labs, okay, that's sort of a veteran entrepreneurial innovation support organization, getting veterans into the entrepreneurial space. So good. I don't even know what this is. Nevada Partners. Okay. I've heard good things about Nevada Partners. Haven't really wanted to deal with them. The Office of Small Business Advocacy from the Lieutenant Governor's Office of the state of Nevada. I just looked at their website today and they need a lot of help. I really hope they turn it into something. I might reach out to them as part of the launch eventually of the In Las Vegas platform. So they have a calendar. They have a calendar that only has 3 events on it for November. None of them are anything having to do with GEW. They have a newsletter that hasn't published since last year. There's three editions of the newsletter, and they're not current. The website is very, very, very scant on details. So if the GOED is truly driving small business and small business advocacy, they have some work to do. America's SBDC in Nevada, the Small Business Distraction Center. Is that what it stands for? I've already talked about the SBDC in Southern Nevada. I'm not impressed. So, fingers crossed. Total Promotion Company, that's a veteran-owned, I will simplify it to t-shirts, but it's substantially more than that. So that's cool. I think I've met the founder at some point. So that's good. I approve. Total Promotion Company. If I were to get some stickers made for the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, for example, I would probably reach out to Total Promotion Company, see what we can do to get started. The U.S. Small Business Administration Veterans Business Outreach Centers, VBOC. Hopefully that's working. I don't really know. Vets in Tech, I have no real idea what they're doing. I know Jason LeDuc was driving the relaunch of a VIT chapter in the Southern Nevada area. I haven't kept up with where they are in that. I think there are some additional people working on it, so that's good. So those are the people, those are the organizations anyway, that are driving Global Entrepreneur Week. And again, I am probably mentioning all of this more than most anyone will in the Southern Nevada area outside of this silo, right? So I'm not saying I'm talking about this more than any of those companies or any of the participants or the people that will show up. What I am saying is that local media, traditional news media, even social media, people don't retweet or whatever the equivalent is. Twitter is a bad thing anyway. So there's just not this notion of excitement turning into viral sharing, linking, talking about, let's do podcasts about stuff. Very difficult. I will give you the perfect example that summarizes all of this. If you were to visit the Tech Alley website, techalley.org, I don't recommend it. I mean, I think it was trying to be something more, and that didn't work, I guess. Every third Saturday, Jason LeDuc, mentioned earlier, does a live stream for a couple of hours, interviews people that are presenting, that are doing their thing. They're at Tech Alley. What do you think? Tell us about your small business. So that's an effort that should be appreciated. It gets almost no viewership during the live event. For last Saturday's event, I was the one viewer, so I left it on playing just to see who showed up there. It's not a strong show. It's okay. It's interesting, not amazing, but it's still in its early days, so that's fine. You would think Tech Alley would want to link to that, promote it, so that people visiting the website or other, like, hey, by the way, somebody takes the time to live stream during, so you can, no, none of that. So there's a very fundamental job skill for people that think they are working in the startup scene here, and that is to be cross-promotional. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the food truck scene. Yes, I'm going to talk about food trucks today, fair warning. So yeah, GW, we'll see how this year goes. I think, I don't know. I hope it goes well. This is not me wishing in any way that it does not. So I think there's a focus on, so we're starting the show now, finally at long last, 35 minutes in. I'm sure I will truncate some silence, so we'll bring that down, but we're a half hour in already. Whew. Informed electorate, yeah, that's what people talk about all day, all night. An informed ecosystem here in the Southern Nevada area, not so much. A point I've made before, but which we should not forget, is that business press in the greater Vegas area, and arguably Nevada, leans towards the shiny objects. Big business, big events, real estate, large dollar plays. These are what gets coverage. I unfortunately half seriously tell people, if you want to start a business in Nevada, kill someone and they'll cover it. That's horrible, but it's not wrong. This being an election season, of course, we are seeing a lot of coverage of the election, of the different candidates, and there is a case to be made for the balance of coverage for candidates by political party, issues and policies, events and public performance, and of course the bias inherent in these. The election is a big topic. Do they cover both sides fairly and evenly? No, of course not. That's the way it is. There seems to be a lack of volume when it comes to entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem coverage and discussion here in the Southern Nevada area, but I would posit that this could be true where you are, wherever you are. So I don't believe this is a uniquely Nevada problem. I would say if you compare press coverage to a place like Silicon Valley, if you do, and I will refer to this later as well, episode 85 of the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program. So 2 weeks ago, I talked a lot about the history of Silicon Valley, Vegas being the next Vegas, right? So some of the links in there include some YouTube-based presentations, whether they're, PBS or a really, really interesting and less Stanford-centric than I would have thought presentation from a professor at Stanford that goes all the way back into the 1800s. Oh, didn't Silicon Valley just start out of nowhere in 2008? No, not even close. So coverage of the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem deserves attention, deserves some scrutiny, because knowing what's going on is important if you plan to participate in it. And if you only go by the hype curve, you think that this is indeed going to be the next Silicon Valley, but you cannot be the next Silicon Valley if you are not yet the next Las Vegas. We don't have a lot of the things that should be in place for 100 years before you venture down this path. So with most attention paid to the top of the ticket, so to speak, with the entrepreneurialism and it's actually not even that. It's the big companies or the VCs. So if you want to talk about entrepreneurialism, of course, you talk to VCs because they know everything about entrepreneurialism. A lot of it is heavily biased towards big name companies, like I said, established individuals. So, do you have an exit? If you're Peter Tomasic, you may as well have just a pool of water in front of you at all times so that you can walk across it. So everybody loves them because they raised $43 million for their most recent, $43 million safe for their most recent venture, which is TensorWave, which is a data center that will focus on AMD GPUs for artificial intelligence computation. $43 million to me does not sound like enough money. That's all I have to say about that at this time. But I think we do elevate luminaries and put halos on their heads too soon here. There's no reason to worship people for doing things. Let's worship what they did, maybe, if you're going to worship stuff. Yeah. So this bias, though, is inherent. We love shiny things. Those are where the news coverage goes. That's where the reporters go. That's where the TV cameras point, etc. And of course, potential for celebrity, that's where it's really at. So if Marky Mark says something, Mark Wahlberg, the notion that Mark Andreessen was moving to town, I kid you not, got tittering and much visible excitement from some people in the economic development staff. Ooh, did you hear Mark Andreessen's moving to Vegas? He did not. I believe, what's his name? Horowitz? Is it David Horowitz? No. Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz. I'm totally spacing on his first name. I think he has a home here, but they're really looking at that rich person haven fake city that they want to develop in California. So how much are they really going to do in Vegas? Not sure. They may invest in some of this AI stuff because Andreessen is certainly leaning in heavily. He thinks AI is going to take over the world and put all of us normal people out of work. So we will see. I worked at Netscape. Disclaimer. So I've never really interacted with Mark Andreessen, but I did work there when he was the wonderkind. Always look out for these young kids that are elevated to early celebrity. They cause trouble. Mostly counterproductive, all this coverage of this sort of thing. It's bluster, it's celebrity, it's shiny objects. So because the coverage paints a picture that is very shiny, very, very oversaturated, very high dynamic range, like, oh man, Vegas is where that is the next. Well, it's not a picture people looking at the actual entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem are looking for or should be looking for. You're seeing an idealized view based on hype, not based on what's going on the ground. By the way, asset map, anyone? Yeah, that's on the to-do list. No, it really is. So gatekeepers and newsmakers, that's who they talk to. One of the problems that is not exclusive to the greater Vegas area, of course, with regard to small business, is who to talk to and when. Where does a reporter go to talk to the startup scene in Vegas? Like, who do you call? Like, do you dial the startup scene and somebody picks up the phone and says, I would like to answer your questions? No, you have to do some reporting. You have to assess the scene, but you're not being paid for that. You're being paid to write 500 words on, what's going on in the startup scene in Vegas. Maybe 800 words. There are 2 or 3 people who everybody knows. Of course, go talk to. Yeah, and they're doing their thing, and they probably have an agenda. So go speak to those people, and they'll tell you about what they're doing in relation to the startup scene or whatever you're looking for. But surely they're current and up to date as far as they need to be for what they're doing. So you'll get some bias. You'll get a viewpoint, the elephant conundrum, the blind people trying to figure out what this thing is that they're sitting in front of or behind or whatever. The go-to people know what they know, and they always have the talking points and an overarching agenda. So these are not necessarily the normal people that are doing this stuff. These are the professionals. These are the people that are actually paid to pretend that this is going to be the next Silicon Valley. So no matter who they are and who they work for, they are ready with a whole set of interlocking talking points that make everything seem just fine. This is the nature of the business, and it is why wherever there are production by street, why wherever there is commentary on the so-called startup scene, whether it's in Vegas, Greater Vegas, or elsewhere, for example, you're going to hear from Heather Brown. You're probably going to hear from Bo Bernard at some point. You're probably going to hear from Jeff Sailing. But UNLV and Startup NV and LVGEA, Heather has her hands in all of those. So you're going to hear from Heather no matter who you call. But Bo is at the Office of Economic Development at UNLV. Jeff Sailing is like the co-founder. I don't know what his official title is, but Startup NV, which is sort of the gatekeeper of funding resources. They started in Reno, so they're tightly coupled to government. Some questions have been raised about their value and effectiveness and more, so I'll leave it there. I have concerns, and you should too, in a thriving startup scene, in an entrepreneurial ecosystem that is rich and full of potential. There should be 10 startup NVs. There should be 50 venture capitalists that have offices or that show up at pitch nights and whatnot. They should be here. They should not be visiting. They should not be, I was in town, I thought I would come by. So I'm always concerned that Startup NV is the go-to because there really isn't other go-tos. Startup.Vegas, sure, that's Heather Brown also. LVGEA, that's Heather Brown. UNLV, Board of Regents, responsible for UNLV and her ward, if that's what they're called, Heather Brown. Heather Brown's a politician. Enough said. News is news, of course. So if there is someone with money, like Teddy Lau, who was throwing his third annual Vegas Tech Summit at his home in Summerlin at the beginning of October this year, with a bunch of rich folks coming in for their $1,000 tickets to talk about what they can take from the Southern Nevada area that will make the news. And in fact, he did. So Teddy was interviewed, and there was another article about, all these rich people moving from California. A lot of people are moving to Southern Nevada from California. They're not all rich, but those don't count. They'll only count when you're talking about how many millions of people have moved to Vegas from California, but who cares? We only want the rich ones. Although there is a tacit assumption that anyone moving here from California is starting a tech company of some sort. People moving into the Vegas area from California do get attention, and it's fine. It's a change of population. There are people leaving Nevada, so the total net population change is something to take a look at. Not everyone is moving here to be in the startup scene, and not everyone who wants to start a company in the greater Vegas area is intent on it being a tech startup. That's something LVGEA was focused on when they hired Heather into the role that she has there. But the KPIs, the key performance indicators, included, from what I read on the job description, how many software engineers are move, relocate, graduate from UNLV and other places, how much funding, how many exits, etc. So they're very bent on tech startups. But guess what? You can start up a company. You can create an entrepreneurial endeavor doing something that you want to do. It doesn't have to be tech. I sometimes wish I could start a cool company that had nothing to do with tech, like a Dude Ranch. So some news is news as long as there's a shiny aspect to it and it involves rich people or people getting rich. And because tech is the way to get rich and there's no other way, tech is it. I'm going to make my food truck analogy. I don't want to drive you away. I used to talk about food trucks more. I've kept it to a minimum lately. It's been a while, but here I want to bring up the Mobile Vendor Challenge in general. So, quick backgrounder. I have talked about this before. Like I said, I lived in the Bay Area. I was developing an application to connect bartenders and service industry to their customers, the regulars. I attended a food truck event in where was it? It was in Palo Alto somewhere. It was in Edgewood Eats. Edgewood. It was an old grocery store parking lot. They had a food truck event there every week. I went there and I said, oh, this is interesting. How do you engage with your customers? Because here you're, instead of talking to service industry folks, which they're fine, not complaining, but speaking to entrepreneurs, business owners who are concerned with their customers finding them to pay the bills, not to make tips, right? Not diminishing, just pointing out a difference. So I switched gears and became much more interested in how the mobile vending business works, about customer engagement, market analytics, and so on. I formed an owners association in affiliation with, or in cooperation with, I guess, as a chapter of the Southern Nevada Mobile Food Vendors Association, SoCal MFVA, Mobile Food Vendors Association. So Matt Geller and I had various conversations, and we formed the Bay Area Mobile Food Vendors Association in the Bay Area, and that was then part of the California Mobile Food Vendors Association. So we were a chapter, and then SoCal MFVA was a chapter of their own super org. Anyway, it all worked. It was fine. So we aim to do one thing, to be a unified voice for the sake of the business. We're a business league. It's a 501c6 business league. If you're a chamber of commerce business league, you're basically advocating for your members to be treated as fair competitors in a marketplace and so on. So anything we were doing was about elevating the marketplace for the sake of mobile vending, increasing consumer awareness, and so on. We did pretty good. Pretty good things came out of that. I had a house fire. I moved to Vegas. I met some food truck people. I said, wow, you have it even worse here. You are really getting screwed over. So Nevada Mobile NFVA, Nevada Mobile Vendors Association, NMVA. Yeah. So we didn't want to do just food trucks. It was going to be any mobile vendors, because if you are a tent vendor, you have a booth at a farmer's market or a similar type show, you really get taken advantage of. Why? Because you pay to be in an event and then you get no promotion. So you pay to promote this other person's event. It's a great business model if you don't have to be on that end of it. So Silicon Valley was an interesting experience. And of course, it was a place with innovation culture built in for 100 years. So a very different mindset, pervasive everywhere, all the time. Everybody has a very different view of starting something. And LA and Silicon Valley both had this in different ways. It's arguable, but probably mostly true for a variety of reasons. That the modern food truck wave kind of restarted in LA. There were tons of food trucks running around. SoCal MFVA took off. The Bay Area, because of entrepreneurialism, because of portable variety, and so on. So anyway, a variety of factors. Vegas doesn't have those things, and it's very cutthroat here. So it's a different experience, different characters, different personalities, a different view on brick and mortar versus mobile vending. I'll give you one hint: who considers whom the enemy. So it should be relatively easy to find your local food truck at lunchtime. That was generally true in Silicon Valley. That's where they really jumped on Twitter, and now it's more Instagram. There were all manner of people writing apps and trying to do the half of the problem of mobile vending, which is your customers finding you. The other half is booking business. But portable variety is a good thing. So is social activation. So it took off there. And here in Vegas, it was a totally different terrain. If there was news about food trucks or some food festival in the Bay Area, who to talk to? Well, this was always a problem in general. You would go talk to Matt Cohen because everybody knew about the food truck event that was held at the old army base. Oh yeah, that the big event, that guy. And then there were three big players that were basically taking the marketplace of event organizers and Movable Feast, Food Truck Mafia, and to this day I have a mental block on what Matt Cohen's company is. It was Off the Grid. Thank you. Jeez, why do I always forget that? Don't know. So Off the Grid, it was the big event in San Francisco, and then he bought up all the permits. And so to do business in San Francisco as a food truck owner, you had to work with Off the Grid. Kind of a racket, kind of. Anyway, I mean, Matt was fine. But definitely one way to do business. So he would be the one to call, or Ryan, or I cannot remember the food truck mafia people. Their family owned multiple food trucks, so that was the joke, but not organized crime figures, not really. The individual mobile vendors had no real voice, so if you wanted to find out about a particular food truck, good luck. They were often difficult to find. In general, current contact information was not always easy. Who would have their current phone number? The food truck organizers, the big three, that's the way the system worked. They were often, they were difficult to find, and they were not always easy to contact. And often they depended entirely on Twitter or Facebook or now Instagram. So you get what you get. So if I want to figure out where the Burger King guy got a bunch of money from a GoFundMe because Burger King didn't give him a good retirement gift or some other thing about he was there every day. I can't remember his name. Is Ford. Last name is Ford, I think. So he's starting a food truck with all of his donated winnings, and good for him. It's something like F84 or something. There have been a couple of mentions in the press because it's noteworthy, it's unusual, it's novel, but who knows where and when his food truck will launch and so on. Why? Because he is a small business, and he's in a small business environment that does not favor his type of small business. So getting any legitimate news coverage will be tricky at best. There will be some throwback. Oh, remember the guy we told you about from the Burger King thing? So half the article will be catching you up, and then, and he's launching his food truck finally at long last. So you don't really know, how do you cover a small moving object like that? It's like covering a comet. It only comes around every 75 years. Okay, there's Halley's Comet. There's some video. Okay, on to the next thing. But the moon, you always know where the moon is, right? So if there was a way to find these small businesses and connect them to reliable information outlets and so on, it could be more interesting. The marketplace in Clark County, the greater Vegas area, for mobile vendors is profoundly different, as I've hinted at. In my experience, much more overt bias towards brick and mortar business. Even in the health department, a level of disdain at both the business and health department levels, although some people in the health department are actual food truck fans, so they're like on the opposite end of that spectrum. But some people find them to be kind of a cheat, that it's unfair that you can operate a restaurant near a place that pays a lease. And, it's the typical, you don't have to pay the same bills. And I've had this conversation so many times, I will spare you. But when any news is made, the owner of the food truck or the mobile business might get an interview, maybe the Burger King guy as an example. Often, though, the mobile vending business is covered through the health department or maybe First Friday people. That is, they talk to someone that works at an agency like the health department or who organizes an event like First Friday, which is high profile, to get the lowdown on what's up with food carts and vending on sidewalks and food permits and inspections and new fire regulations. You just go talk to somebody at the fire department, or you talk to the First Friday organizer, not to the actual vendors, because the vendors are hard to find. You'll only find the vendors at First Friday. They don't do business anywhere else, is one mistaken notion. And then there's an owner here who's fairly prolific and a ginormous a-hole, and his name is Yasser. And that's all I'll say about that. But he gets the phone call. Hey, you should form an owners association so the number they call is yours, not one person who has their own interests first, etc. So these are early days. As I have mentioned, we are not a year or two away from being the next Silicon Valley. As I went over in episode 85, which I've mentioned already, of this audio program, the history of a place like Silicon Valley begins a long way back, arguably more than 100 years ago. Certainly about 80 years ago, if you want to consider 1944, when Frederick Terman moved back to the Bay Area and became the dean of the engineering college at Stanford. Is it the engineering college or the engineering? Do they do colleges or do they do just the department? Anyway, Frederick Terman. Certainly about 80 years ago. So that's when that happened-ish, that window. But over 100 years ago, when telegraph and radio tubes eventually, and the culture of innovation was sprouting in a post-gold rush world. So it depends on how you view innovation culture, evolution, and cultivation. But either way, it didn't just happen yesterday. If we believe that these are the early days here in Vegas and that the greater Vegas area might evolve into something that will work well in this area, then we have nothing to worry about. It will evolve over time. Give it time, give it that time, and stoke the fires of entrepreneurialism. Cultivate a culture of innovation. So you should really give episode 85 a listen, or at least grab the Stanford YouTube video on the history of Silicon Valley that's in the link section for episode 85. Why am I not linking to episode 85? Because you're already listening to this episode. Just go back to. However you're consuming this, you should be able to find 2 episodes ago. If, on the other hand, we listen to the Vegas Tech Summit messaging, to the scant local media mentions, to the drivel coming out of LVGA, the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, and organizations like Startup NV, then there are other smaller accelerator programs, something zero. Is it net zero? No, something zero at Blackfire. So they're focused on hospitality and gaming innovation. That's good. This is the place for that. So that's cool. But they don't get the attention that Startup NV gets, which is too bad. I believe they made an appearance, prominent appearance at the Startup Week, not in any other media. So if we listen to the drivel coming from these motivated reasoning organizations, then our greater Vegas area is where all startups must come. You must come to extract resources from the greater Vegas area. You must come here because of the taxes and because you can set up shop here cheaply and because you can have your employees move here and buy homes at, well, you can't really say that's a good price anymore, but you can gentrify the area. You can price out all of our fun economy workers and destroy that. Ask yourself, let me add a K to that. Little extra. Ask yourself what might happen if your cost of living goes up as it did in Silicon Valley. And I was there from 1993 to 2001. It went up quite a bit. If you need to move out of town to afford to work in the service or hospitality industries to maintain a normal existence somewhere within our fun economy, as happened over time in Austin, which I've also talked about previously, I believe also in episode 85, we're all set. We will eventually reach the point where people who make the economy go here, the fun economy, will have to live somewhere else or get a lot more in tips. Luckily, you may not be paying income tax no matter who wins on your tips. By the way, I will accept tips from that moment forward. If that's the case, I will only accept tips. I'm not making fun. I'm just saying it's a weird running, what do you call that? Plank. So what's next? This is the last section, I promise. We're coming to an end. I got an hour on my clock here, runtime. Las Vegas Startup Week is done for the year. Apparently attendance was greater than 0. Global Entrepreneur Week is coming up. The Nevada contingent will have a presence here in the Southern Nevada area. It remains to be seen how that will come off this year. I think last year was a little thin, but it was during the Formula One race. This year it might be during the Formula One race also. So we'll see. I don't know how that's a good thing. Either way, we'll see if it can grow because it's really hard to get an event up and off the ground in Vegas. I want to say this is the 3rd year of GEW here in Vegas. The first year that Mr. Berlin is running the state, if I understand correctly. May have been last year. Who knows? I'll look through our local media coverage and see nothing. So yeah, I hope it goes well. I do. If we look at the sponsors, partners, and overall participation in events like these, and we did go over some of those for the upcoming GEW, in events such as Tech Alley and other meetups in the so-called startup scene. I refer to Tech Alley, by the way, because it is really the only thing that gets any attention, and it's mostly because it's got some critical mass of people attending every month. It remains to be seen just how effective it is at down-the-road outcomes. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I haven't been in over a year now. So it may have gotten much better, and I hope it did. So other meetups in the so-called startup scene, wherever they are, I get a sense that there are some meetups going on, but I really have leaned 100% into this. If you have time to go to meetups and hang out at Tech Alley for free food, you're probably not busy enough working on your startup. I don't know where the meetups are for startup scene. You can look at meetup.com, but don't don't do that. If we look at the tools and methods, the resources, the interactive collaboration potential, we can include two of these things. We can include one of these two things, not two of these things. Pick one of the two things. Number one, if the greater Vegas area is to be the next Silicon Valley, it is entirely possible that this is a reference to the HBO series, which was not a documentary for those who were thinking it may have been. Or number two, if the greater Vegas area is to be a better Vegas, or as I like to say, greater Vegas, greater than the Vegas it is now, as fertile ground for our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem to provide for flourishing startups, small business, creativity, and all manner of coolness, whether it is the next AI mobile app or some blockchain silliness, I hope not. Maybe it's just people who want to pursue an idea, an entrepreneurial, innovative thing. Your next restaurant concept, a little corner hole-in-the-wall bar, a dive bar if you like. Not everything is technology. Sometimes building a startup is about something other than ChatGPT and how many GPUs you need. Yes, I'm talking about, anyway, things. So I'm going to go with option 2. I don't think option 1 is a reality, not in the next decade. And I promise you, 10 years is optimistic. Things might get weird in 2025 here in the greater Vegas area. It may be worthwhile to look at what we have and where we might go from here and whether the hype is to be believed. Don't. Or if we should look at sharing more information, increasing awareness, elevating potential, and engaging the future, whether it's tech or something more. I chose that word specifically, something more than just tech. We've reached the end of this episode. Yay! So detritus, I'm going to look more optimistic future rather than pessimistic present. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not totally stoked by what we have before us and some of the very same people. I'm totally off the notes now, total editorial. I looked through the Startup Week speaker list, and you see the same people all the time. And I'm looking at the GEW, and the calendar's not really filled in, so I don't really have a sense, but we'll see over the next couple weeks. But you look at the people that are supporting the effort, and good for them. Hey, it's better than nobody showing up. But it's the same people. It's the same groups. I used to hear from people when we first started our charity organization, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation. You should go to Cox Business. They always sponsor people. That's not a good sign. That means everybody's relying on one single donor. And that one single donor, A, will run out of money at some point, or B, might say, you know what, we're not getting anything for this. Yes, we're an integral part of the community with our funding of such efforts, such endeavors, but there's really no return on that. And so it becomes a little bit cumbersome, a little bit uncomfortable. You start seeing the same, like, how come nobody else is being supportive of you? That is a great question. So it's something we also need to look at here in the greater Vegas area is diversity of participation, not diversity in the, no, this is not a controversial topic. There should just be more than the same people showing up every time. More than the same logos as partners and sponsors, more than the same 120 people showing up every month and having the free food. And, it should be, things should be better. What I'm saying is that if this place is going to be the flourishing madhouse of innovation and entrepreneurial opportunity that everybody seems to believe it's going to be, we've been talking about this for 3 years now. There should be a lot more going on than there is. And since I was in Silicon Valley, I moved there in 1993, and that's when the recession started to turn around. That's when Clinton Gore got into office. It's when Gore invented the internet, right in there somewhere. Things moved profoundly quickly. Why is that, you might ask? Because they didn't decide in 1993 that we're going to be the next, we're going to be the Silicon Valley. They said, hey, we've been developing a culture of innovation here in this geographical area for 100 years. This is the place to do it. You cannot take people who made their millions in the early 2000s or after the Great Recession in 2008, 9, 10. That's like 10 years, 15, 20 years ago. That's right. But everything that they made their money on started 100 years before that in various ways. Now, no, they were not building GPUs 100 years ago, but they didn't just arrive in Silicon Valley, sprinkle some money over the city or the region and say, okay, let's be innovative. And that is what is being asserted for the greater Vegas area. And that's just not how things work. So I am concerned in the near term. I would like to see some organic growth. I would like to see an adoption of a mindset that is about innovation and cultivating innovation and cultivating young minds into creative individuals that will do things nobody thought of before. You don't have to have, if you step up in front of the graduating class of 2025, right? Walk up as a speaker and say, we're going to go ahead and import a bunch of employees to work at the companies. I know you guys just got your people. I know you people just got your degrees, but we just don't have the talent pool we need to support this economy we keep telling everybody we have. That's not really good messaging, but that is essentially what is going to happen, whether directly or indirectly. Oh, we'll just move people. We'll import talent. People say that like it's, we'll just import eggs because we don't grow our own eggs here. Well, that's why the eggs are so expensive at your local grocery store here in Vegas. And that is where I will end it, because this is the Detritus episode, not part one of a 100-part series where I lament. So from now on, for the next several episodes anyway, I can't make any real promises. But from now, for the next few weeks, we'll focus much more heavily on entrepreneurialism, moving forward on some ideas on how the MuniBits project is moving along with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, and whether the in Las Vegas information sharing platform will see the light of day while there is still light of day. Hopefully, as you're listening to this, you will recall that you voted in the 2024 election for your favorite candidate, and may the best woman win. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you for your support, of course.